Hello and welcome to Dining with Death. This episode is on our playlist, Dining with the Deceased, where we visit locations that are supposedly haunted. We talk about the ghosts that supposedly live there, and as always, we eat in that location. Today I'm coming to you from Alameda, California, just outside San Francisco, the site of the USS Hornet, a retired World War II aircraft carrier that even service people say is haunted. I'm going to take you inside, I'm going to show you around the ship, and we're going to experience a little bit of this location. I'm Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Just really quick before we start, we are back to the car now, but we got some things in there that I wasn't expecting. The docents saw how interested we were in everything and gave us a tour of the top secret control room that nobody gets to see. So you're really going to want to stay with me and watch this. It's fascinating. The massive ship behind me is the USS Hornet. It is now a museum, but it was once a war machine. It was completed in late 1943 and sailed the Pacific Ocean as the U.S. Navy's primary offensive force in World War II. She participated in attacks on Japanese installations in New Guinea, Palau, and Truk, and also took place in the Mariana and Palau Islands campaigns. She fought in 59 battles and was never hit by a bomb or a torpedo or a kamikaze, making her one of the most successful ships in the war. She played a big part in the Battle of the Philippine Sea before she was badly damaged by a typhoon in June of 1944 and had to return to the U.S. for repairs. It would be very difficult to put into words how awesome this structure is. It is enormous. As big as it looks on the outside, it feels even bigger inside. This is the main hangar deck, and there are more than a dozen air machines in here with plenty of space to spare. Look at all these fighter planes and helicopters and trailers, and they actually look small inside this massive area. Now, your girl is not a math person, and I cannot begin to wrap my mind around the engineering that goes into something like this. From the huge pieces of sheet metal down to the tiny welds on every small piece of metal that makes up the grand old lady, often called the Gray Ghost. The USS Hornet is an Essex-class aircraft carrier, which is a much larger class of ship than the preceding Yorktown class. She is 888 feet long and can carry 382 officers and 3,003 enlisted sailors. She has 4 geared steam turbines, which each produce a total of 150,000 shaft horsepower. This gives her a maximum speed of 33 knots or 38 miles per hour. Even after her service in World War II, she remained at sea. She went into the Vietnam War and even recovered the Apollo 11 astronauts in July of 1969 when they landed in the ocean after a trip to the moon, and then also recovered the Apollo 12 astronauts as well. This is a pod on loan from NASA that is very similar to the aircrafts that were picked out of the ocean by the crew members of this ship. The astronauts in their vessel was placed right here. The doors opened and the astronauts stepped out and walked on this path, marked now with painted footsteps, into this Airstream trailer where they then remained quarantined for days. Can you imagine being in here, not being able to leave for days on end with 3 other adults? It's quite astounding. There is just an awesome amount of history associated with this magnificent ship, and I feel very happy to get to walk around and take it all in. Now, I could continue for a very long time citing the statistics and history of this feat of engineering. It is really something to behold, just an incredibly imposing structure with awesome and important history. But we are going to focus a little more on the human aspect of the ship, those who served on her, those who maintain her now, and those who may still remain here long after their service has ended. You walk up a very steep ramp into the main hangar deck. I was unaware that the wings of the planes and the blades of the helicopters fold up in order to fit inside this space, and that fact only makes these machines more impressive. You feel very, very tiny when you're inside, and it's mind-boggling to remember that this thing actually floats. All the other areas on this ship are either up or down, and the only way to go either way is by ladder. Now, when I say ladder, I mean a ladder. These steep, narrow steps barely wide enough for one person. Full disclosure, I am a very claustrophobic person, and I struggled here a little bit. The very tight ladders lead to even tighter passageways. Look at these. When I first stepped into one of these little passages, I thought that oval, this right here, was a mirror. The cells that you walk through are identical, so identical that yes, I actually thought I was looking into a mirror at first. There are these yellow signs everywhere called bullseyes that tell you what deck you are on, what side of the ship you are on, and what compartment you are in. Without them, you could easily get lost in this maze. You can see here how tight these spaces are. As tight as they look, they feel much tighter. Not an inch of space is wasted on these vessels. There are huge bundles of cables and wiring stuffed into every corner. There are fire hoses everywhere and hatch doors with WTD, these wheels that terrify me, all over the ship. We went down into the crew mess and bunk area, and let me tell you, I had to employ all my calming techniques to come down here. It is very small. Look at these beds. Can you imagine sleeping on this tiny thing? There isn't even room to turn over. Not only is the bed tiny, but you've got someone either right above or right below you, or both if you're in the middle. I just could not handle this. My hats are off to the sailors who did this and who continue to do this, because I certainly could not. Now, this little area, I found this shocking and fascinating. Just, gonna perform a quick medical procedure right here in the middle of the dining room. Can you imagine someone laying here having teeth pulled or an injury attended to? The little wash sink, the medical lights, it's just really quite incredible. This area is the ship's library, where sailors can read and spend quiet time, and it sits right next to the chapel. Imagine these pews filled with men, and yes, it was only men back then. It's really quite something to think about and something to picture. After climbing up and up, we arrived on the deck. This is where the action is. We've all seen videos and movies about what happens here, and standing here picturing it, I can tell you it's even more awesome. Yes, this is a large area, but landing a plane large, slingshotting a plane off of it large, it's incredible. This item is called the JBD, which stands for Jet Blast Deflector, and this is its purpose. It diverts heat and exhaust while the jet powers up and readies for catapult shot. The whole process is really quite awesome. I always find clothing from bygone eras especially interesting. These are samples of what each serviceman wore on deck, and they're color-coded. Each color has a different, specific job. I like that the men who wear the purple uniforms are called grapes. And now for a real treat, something I was not expecting. As we came in from being on the deck, a docent who noticed how interested we had been pulled us aside and asked us if we wanted to see something very special. Of course, we said yes. Now, at this point in the day, I had used up all the fuel in my non-panic tank, and my claustrophobia was at a level 10. So I had to turn the camera over to my husband. He did a pretty good job. I just couldn't make myself walk into another totally dark steel room with a watertight vaulted door on it. I just was kind of spent at this point, but I definitely was not going to miss out on this. This is the communications room of the ship. At the time it was in service, it was top secret. Not even the crew or some of the officers outside of those who had clearance were allowed in this room. This was technology at its edge. This was as high tech as it got, and even now, it is incredibly impressive. This man, he is a docent here, was so kind to do this for us. He spent years of his life on this ship, and yes, in this very room. He sat right here at times with 32 other men in this tiny space for 16 hours at a time, day in and day out. It's almost too much for me to comprehend. People do incredible things when incredible is required of them.
This is Combat Information Center. Combat Information Center is the electronic hub of the ship.
Okay.
All the radar units that are up on the mast, they come down to here. So you've got air search radar, surface search radar. You've got anti-submarine work that's done here. You have strike or air ops, which they take the aircraft when they're 17 miles out all the way to the beach to do a bomb run. So there are air traffic controllers that do that. That's what was my job.
Wow.
When I was in. Then you've got air search, which is around here, which there are 5 guys which do air search around the ship out to about 320 miles out and look for the bad guys.
Ooh.
This section here is subsurface or sonar, which is very rarely found on an aircraft carrier. And again, it's for anti-submarine work.
Okay.
You have behind you here is surface. And that is literally what it says it is. This is what CIC looks like in the daytime. This is when you're in port. This is not what CIC looks like when you're out at sea. When you're out at sea, it looks like this.
Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever.
If you've ever seen Top Gun,
Yeah.
or if you've ever seen like the movie Battleship, they do have scenes in CIC, and this is what it looks like. I spent 4 years of my life in here.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, brave. I'm sorry. I'm just so claustrophobic. I can't imagine.
Man. So you all are just here, the lights are off, and you guys are just looking at what you're...
That's it. We're looking at the scopes. We're looking at what's written up on the status boards. There's normally about 24 men in here at one time. During battle stations or general quarters, there's 32 men in here.
Oh my gosh.
32 people in this small area.
Yeah.
Do your eyes ever get used to it? I mean,
Oh
is
yeah,
it?
you have to.
And then in the day they just readjust.
Yeah, yeah. You're spending 8 hours. You're running 16-hour days, 8 on, 8 off.
So this is about 22 feet long. And this particular room here is maybe 16 feet wide, 18 feet wide. And you had 32 of you in here. Wow. It's amazing.
And everyone's got, I'm assuming, their own specific, very, you know,
Everybody's got
ported
their
off
jobs,
station,
yeah.
their job. They don't move.
No. And everybody's talking at the same time. You've got the scope operators that are talking to the guys behind the status boards that are writing, and they are relaying information to the officers in charge. And it's all being coordinated so the captain and the admiral and whoever needs it can use that information.
Wow.
You're tracking every ship, every aircraft, every submarine in the area.
And what was your rank when you
When I
got
was
out?
an E5, operations specialist,
Okay.
2nd class.
This is just such an awe-inspiring place. I could go into each aspect of this ship for hours. There is so much detail and so much history, it's almost overwhelming. We could dedicate hours to the many stories, duties, functions that happened here, and to the people who devoted their time and their lives to this ship. But today we are here to talk about ghosts, and there is no shortage of ghost stories on this magnificent vessel. Bob Ice of the U.S. Coast Guard states that while he and a group of volunteers were painting here, he got lost looking for more paint. He and the other volunteers were wearing white paper suits, and as he wandered, lost, he found himself in a side passage and saw what he thought was one of his co-workers, a figure dressed in white, which he thought was the white paper suit, in the hallway. He called out to the person, but they didn't answer. He caught up to them and turned the corner they had turned, but there was no one there. When he returned to his group, he told others what he had seen, and a woman said, "Oh, you've seen the dress whites ghost," which apparently is the apparition of a sailor wearing his dress whites uniform. There are many reports of loud men's voices coming from the men's restroom near the sinks, and when people enter the restroom, they find it empty. Stephen Shirk reports that on a trip through the ship, while in the medical operating wing of the ship, he took a photo which included some empty chairs. When he looked through the photos later that night, chills ran up his spine as he saw a figure sitting in one of the chairs that hadn't been there when he took the photo, wearing an old-fashioned pilot's helmet who appeared to be tied down to the chair. This docent was kind enough to let me film him sharing a story told by his friend.
Okay, so one of the security guards was telling me about this. He says he was walking across the flight deck in the middle of the day. He was all by himself because you could see 360 degrees around him. And somebody tapped him on the shoulder. Not just a little tap, but a tap, tap, tap like that.
Oh.
And of course, you turn around and there was absolutely nobody there.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be in the middle of the night when the lights are out.
Right.
Below decks in the galley or in the ship's sleeping quarters. It can be anywhere.
Again, there are many, many stories like this. People hearing voices, seeing sailors fully dressed, and even being touched at times. So many people spent some of the most traumatic moments of their lives right here. So many people wondered if the bombs and the planes flying overhead were bringing them certain death. So many people suffered fear and experiences on board this ship. So many friendships were formed. So many people worked for a common cause here. So many people lived through things they would never forget here, and their lives were changed forever on this ship. So it comes as no surprise that some of them may want to visit from time to time. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, I think we can all agree that if any place is haunted, the USS Hornet would be that place. Now, as we always do on Dining with Death, we discuss the food in the haunted location. They often serve hamburgers here on the USS Hornet, but COVID has changed a lot of things, so I'm giving you the closest thing. California is home to the USS Hornet, and there is nothing more California hamburger than In-N-Out Burger. If you're not from the West, you may not know about In-N-Out Burger, but if you're from this area, it's pretty much a religion. In-N-Out is a California staple. Its first location opened in 1948 in Baldwin Park, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. Harry Snyder introduced California's first drive-through hamburger stand. He also invented the two-way speaker box, working in his garage late at night after long days of cooking burgers. He invented, created, and introduced a way for guests to order their food without leaving their cars, so this man left quite a legacy. In-N-Out is famous for its incredibly fresh ingredients and small menu. It consists of only hamburgers, cheeseburgers, fries, soda, and shakes. That's it. No chicken sandwiches, no nuggets, no salads, just burgers and fries. If you're in the know, get those fries animal style. That's my favorite. In-N-Out is also famous for paying really well and treating their employees well, and that alone makes it worth my coins. No matter how many stands they build, the line is always long, but it moves fast, and believe me, people are willing to wait for this food. If you've had it, you don't need to ask why. It's a fabulous burger, and the fries are always fresh and hot, cut from potatoes and perfectly crisp. In-N-Out is as California as beaches and shipping ports. The two are forever tied together. As tied together as the Gray Ghost, the USS Hornet, and some of her sailors who have apparently decided they may never leave. Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, Dining with the Deceased. Like and subscribe if you would like to see more. Stay safe and be kind to each other, and I'll see you next time on Dining with Death.